Hey folks, this is David Wheeler. Welcome back to Muckyou. Mo and I have had a little bit of a vacation the last couple of weeks, but we're back, and we've got a really, really interesting guest today. And for that, I'll turn it over to Mo. Take it, Mo.
Hey, thanks. And let me just put out a clarification here. David said we've been on vacation, not together. That's how rumors get started.
No, that's true. Not that there's anything wrong with
that.
Of
course not. But I just want to make sure.
No, I've been with my kids in Iowa. We went to the state fair. We actually had a ball. We went to a combine demo derby in Iowa. So anyway.
We went to England, which was a lot of fun. But when I came back, I guess it was Monday. I was going to the hardware store and I got to the bottom of the hill at the intersection. I thought something's not right. And it dawned on me I was on the wrong side of the road. So it took a little bit.
Well, that's a story of my life being on the wrong side of the road.
We digress.
Yes. Yeah, all right. Take it. Mo.
Yeah, sure. Well, listen, it's Ed Opperman's joining us today. Should be an interesting show. Ed's an investigative reporter. He has a private detective agency, a computer and cell phone forensic company. And he's also the host of the Opperman Report, the place for scandals, politics, and true crime stories. So, Ed, thanks for taking time out and joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, I'm just curious, some of the scandal stuff, back in the day, you remember like monkey business, when Hart, was down in Florida, and that it ended his career. It seems like now that all the scandals that are, it's like daily fare, just don't seem to have any impact anymore. Is that your impression?
Yeah, Trump, the king of all tabloid media, has changed the ball game. Like you said, Gary Hart. As a matter of fact, I'm interviewing Dan O'Hank's private investigator on Saturday. And he's the one who used to kill all the Trump stories for the tabloids for AMI when he was worked for them for years and years.
Wow. Do you think they matter anymore? I mean, has the public just kind of gotten, immune to scandal?
Yeah, the old expression that either be caught with what was it? A live boy or a dead girl. And that's gone totally out the window now. They're making excuses now for. Trump just came out last week talking about how Epstein stole Virginia Jew-free from him. And we can imagine that 10 years ago. My God.
I know. Yeah, it seems like we're in an environment that, and again, I'm a Democrat and a candidate running for office. That it seems like Republican. There's nothing a Republican can do wrong, and nothing a Democrat can do right. Yeah. That all these scandals just seem to bounce off. And what do you think with the? It seems like the Epstein thing has gotten more traction than some of the others. With Joe Rogan and some of the other traditional Trump supporters seem to have kind of latched onto it and don't want to let go.
In the beginning, when he would release the so-called files, and the list and all that stuff, those influencers did seem to be turning against him. But the thing is, they're just so entrenched, they're so embedded in this MAGA movement. That's where their money, that's where the paychecks come from, and it just blows over, And now they're openly making excuses. Hey, even if Trump did screw a 14-year-old, he's doing now. The price of eggs are down. You know what I mean? It's just, what the hell's going on, man? Yeah.
You had some involvement with the Stormy Daniels case. So could you tell the listeners a little bit about that? And at the time, did you think that was going to turn out to be a bigger deal than it proved to be?
Yeah. It's like Charlie Brown with the football. We always think it's going to be a big. This is the time. We always think this is the scandal that's going to take them down, and it never happens. I knew everybody involved in that deal. Gina Rodriguez is this manager, this agent, and she was my agent. She was my manager for a while there too. She was my client too. She got me involved in a lot of stuff. The lawsuit against Charlie Sheen, and some work we did against Ashton Kutcher. I did some cell phone forensics in that case. I did all the cell phone forensics in the Tiger Woods mistresses case. All those, that was all for Gina Rodriguez. She got me hooked up with all those people. And she was the agent for Stormy Daniels. And she was the one, along with Keith Davidson, who's been a client of mine for years, and also been a sponsor on my show, The Opperman Report. He's a sponsor of the show. And he was the attorney that negotiated that deal way before Avenatti came on board and screwed things up. So yeah, I know everybody involved in that deal. Dylan Howard, I know him. Keith Schiller, I did work with Keith Schiller back in the old days before he had any connection to notoriety in the White House or anything like that. This is way back in the old days. So knew everybody involved in that deal. And the very start, I was saying, hey, this is a legit deal, man. These aren't political people. Gina and Keith, they are not political people to make up a story. So I knew it was legit. But you'd think, 34 felonies, you'd think that would have an effect, right? No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So Ed, we got to know each other during the Lauren Boebert days,
Oh yeah.
and enjoyed coming on your show and pontificating. So where does one of the things that I'm always interested in our guests is where's the motivation come from? How'd you end up in this industry as well?
Oh boy, I've had a long run, pal. I've been involved in a lot of stuff, man. I guess I was a political activist with the Yippies back in New York City back in the 70s. I was an anarchist, a street political activist, and got involved with them, and that's how I first came into a source in the telephone company that if someone needed a name and address from an unlisted phone number, I had a source in the phone company that could produce that information. And then we could even produce the local usages, all the phone calls coming from that phone number. And then at the top, it would have their place of employment, their social security number, sometimes even their bank account number. So I had access to that information. It was gold. And I went around trying to sell it to some PIs. I met this private investigator in Brooklyn who worked on these huge organized crime cases, the Carmine Persico case and the Pizza Connection. Not Pizza Gate. People get confused. This is the Pizza Connection, a heroin smuggling operation that went on back in the late 70s, early 80s. And all those cases against Giuliani and Michael Chertoff, I worked all those cases. That's the first time I met Giuliani back in those days. And so that's when I got involved in the PI business. That was my little foot in there because I had that access to that golden information that nobody had back in those days. If we had identity theft back in those days, I'd be living on an island with the, because the kind of info you could get back in those days, man, it was just unbelievable.
Huh. So you started out as, it sounds like, a liberal. How does a liberal work in a private detective law enforcement space where it's mostly white conservative dudes?
Oh no, criminal defense. I always worked criminal defense. I've never worked for the
Right.
police. The only brush a few times I worked, as a matter of fact, get this, man. The only time I've ever cooperated with prosecutors is Epstein-related cases in the Virgin Islands, and the case they first got me started with this. I was a witness for the prosecution down in Florida. That's the only time I've worked for the prosecution that I could think of. And then liberal, more of a socialist. I'm a socialist right now. I'm not a capitalist whatsoever. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican.
Right.
But all my work has always been criminal defense. I was always on the side of the against the government.
Wow, interesting. So
Yeah.
what's your take on all this Epstein shit?
Oh.
Where do you think it's going to land? And where do you think Trump and others are vulnerable, just based upon your general knowledge?
Yeah, I did the first radio broadcast on Jeffrey Epstein in 2013. My guest was Robert Morrow. You know who Robert Morrow is, right?
No, I don't. Who is that?
Oh, he ghost wrote for Roger Stone.
Right.
He ghost wrote all those
Oh
books for
my
Roger
God.
Stone. Yeah. And so he hates Epstein, and he was very involved in this Katie Johnson case too as well. But he was the only person out there who even knew the name Epstein, and the only guest I could find. I searched all over, so I've been involved in this Epstein stuff way back from the start. And now though the story is controlled 100% by the Epstein people. If you look around, who do you see? Just today I was looking on TikTok, and who's on there? Michael Wolff, who was friends with Epstein, was friends with Bannon. Bannon was friends with Epstein. Who's calling for the list, man? Epstein's brother, who's sitting on a bunch of shell corporations and a bunch of buildings, man. What is the source of income that this guy has $500 million, man? Epstein's brother, and we're going to be relying on him for information about Epstein's death and Epstein's disappearance from that jail cell in MCC. So everyone out at Dershowitz. Oh, I got the list. These are all the guys who on Epstein's side. These are all his pals, his closest friends. They're
Right.
controlling the story.
Right. So you think they're trying to divert our attention by pretending they're as outraged, but they're not really that outraged?
Oh, 100%, man.
Right.
100%. The story is controlled by the Epstein people, and it has been for quite a while.
Huh. Well, where do you think it's headed? I mean, yesterday CBS had a really good report that there was a third person, well, a second guard with Epstein in that video. And lo and behold, we find out that I think it was three of the four cameras that would have picked this up were inoperable. What's going on here? Any idea?
Yeah, I have a lot of experience with MCC. Okay, I
All right.
worked. I was in there back with that. That's when those organized crime cases. And my friends were in there. Hoffenberg was in there. I've done 15 interviews with Stephen Hoffenberg, Epstein's former partner and mentor, and he was in there for his crimes. It's one of the most corrupt jails that we've ever experienced. Okay, and there's a lot of contraband in that jail. Another thing too that I could tell you, I don't know anything about this video. Okay, I haven't spent a lot of time about that. I know Julie K. Brown is screaming from the rooftops about it, that it's not even pointed in the right direction, and the video has nothing to do with Epstein, and I trust it for the most part. But one thing I can tell you that's unreported about Epstein and that jail is Efren Stone Reyes. The mystery man, nobody even knows his name. If you Google who was the last inmate, the last cellmate of Jeffrey Epstein, the only thing you're going to come up with is that Tagliati guy, the big muscle-bound murderer who was a one-time cellmate. But the last cellmate was this guy, Efren Stone Reyes, who was getting money in his commissary by Epstein's lawyers. He was removed from the cell that day because the guy was a snitch. He was working on his own cases. So he wasn't there the day of the death, the disappearance, or whatever you want to call it. But guess what? Good old Efren Stone Reyes is dead today, too. He's another death, died of COVID, supposedly. He was released on one of those COVID release deals. And now he's gone as well, resting in peace. But the story with him was unconfirmed, is that he was in there jonesing on heroin, and Epstein was able to get him smuggle some Suboxone in there for him. That's been widely reported. I can't confirm it or deny it, but the fact that nobody knows, he's in the report. He's in that final Epstein report, which I have for free up on my Patreon. But otherwise, unreported. Nobody talks about this guy at all.
So how's he connected? Tie this together.
He was Epstein's last cellmate that no one talks about. He was interviewed by Bill Barr after Epstein's death, and now he's dead. Okay. And he also talks about Epstein having enough juice in that jail to smuggle in Suboxone for him. And he was removed from the cell the day of the disappearance, of the death.
Interesting.
Ah,
Crazy.
crazy.
So, all right. So you haven't told me where this is headed yet, or our listeners. Where do you think Trump ends up in all of this?
Again, good question. I just interviewed Jeff Gilson, who was known Maxwell for years. His friend was murdered by that bunch of arms smugglers with Robert Maxwell. And he knows Ari Ben Menashe and that crew and stuff. And he goes back to talking about the Russian money laundering involved in all this. Now, what I find interesting is, because there's a Murdoch connection to all this way back to Robert Maxwell. Murdoch inherited all of Maxwell's dirty tricks and dirty paperwork and blackmail dirt and a lot of his media empire stuff. And Murdoch was involved with the Hoffenberg. Hoffenberg rescued the New York Post, and then Murdoch took it over. And now we see Murdoch drip, releasing all this information, this birthday book and all this stuff about Trump. And I think Murdoch has a lot of dirt about Trump. In fact, I know he does. And I know also too AMI does. And AMI seems to still be in cahoots with Trump, but Murdoch seems to be not. And a lot of drip is coming out, more than I've ever seen before. In 2015, when I worked on the Katie Johnson case, none of this stuff was out there. And now we're seeing videos, brand new videos, Victoria's Secret parties, all kind of stuff, birthday letters, and leather-bound books. A lot of new information's coming out, and it seems like the tides are turning on Trump, and they're going to use this against him.
Well, let's hope so.
Yeah.
Let's hope so. Over to you, Mo. Take it.
Yeah. Well, Ed, I just wonder, do you think it's going to make any difference? I mean, even, if all this stuff comes out, do you think it's going to make a dent in Trump?
No, I don't. I think we're so inoculated by all this that the true believers will never believe it. He's a man of God, and he was anointed by Christ to kind of save us, from whatever. I don't know. If something, I think there's Putin dirt coming out too. I think Putin has the same dirt as Murdoch has. As a matter of fact, I just interviewed Georgi Skalatsa exclusively. Guy hasn't done an interview since he first went into the public. He's the one in the Mueller report telling Michael Cohen, I stopped the flow of tapes, talking about the Russian P tapes, the blackmail tapes there. So I think that Putin has dirt. I think Putin's threatening to release it. I think that Trump will just say, oh, this is all made up by the Dems. It's made up by Putin. And the true believers will believe it. The ones, the influencers, who that's where their paycheck comes from, they'll just go along with it. When he lies, they lie to back him up. There's no dignity or self-respect in that bunch whatsoever. And people like you and me that are screaming from the rooftop about what a piece of shit this guy is, and it's openly a piece of shit. What more do you want? The guy's a rapist, man, a fraud and a con man, and in court, but no, it doesn't seem to matter in 2025.
Yeah. Do you think we'll ever get back to the day where it does matter, or are we just too far gone?
Talk to a lot of people that are sober people, like Craig Unger, he's a very sober reporter. And I talk to these people, and more people are saying they think martial law is around the corner. We see these ICE agents, masked, armed thugs, which seem to have very little training in crowd control or even cuffing people. Basic training. I don't know where they're pulling these guys off the street. Seem to have very little training, these guys, and the budget bigger than the U.S. Marines right now. Plus, they do have the backup from the Marines. Plus, these local states, like in Florida here, the local Florida police now have a federal authority. They've been deputized federally to enforce immigration too. And then there's that whole local highway patrols that have been deputized to federal enforcement of drug laws. So there's a lot of federal control over local police increasing. Like I said, I've spent my whole life doing criminal defense work, and that whole situation is terrifying. Because I don't know if you know the difference between being prosecuted by a local prosecutor or a federal prosecutor. It's like a 97% conviction rate in federal court, and
Right.
you got to do 85% of your time. It's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell you, as a retired military guy, I'm just appalled,
Oh.
Seeing U.S. troops out on American streets, not facing out towards the border to keep the enemy out, but facing inward to try to control the public. And I never thought I'd see that day happen here in America. Hey, what's a story that our reader or listeners don't know about that you think would be of interest?
Oh boy, there's a ton of them out there. I've been on this. I've been like a dog with a bone on this topic since 2013.
Yeah.
Barbara Pilling, was one of those models. She was 16 years old. She first-hand witness. She was hit on by Trump at 16. He knew she was 16. I have an exclusive interview with her, and she talks about Trump having a 17-year-old Russian girlfriend. We can't forget, too, that whole business with Jared Kushner when his father did that blackmail operation. Those were Russian teens, too, that he used to blackmail his brother-in-law. So there seems to be a lot of Russian teens involved in all this. The other one is Heather Braden, who talks about Steve Mnuchin, who came out as the registered agent for Jean-Luc Brunel's modeling agency. And he claims he has no idea how it happened. Oh, my goodness, how did my name get on there? Happens all the time, right?
Yeah.
But she has an eyewitness. She's seen him hanging around the modeling agency. But the big one is the John Tino story, which fascinating story, because the first I heard about it is in 2019, after Epstein's death. My phone blew up off the hook. I was hearing from every tabloid out there. Suddenly, everybody wanted to talk to Ed Opperman about Epstein, and mostly it was through Hoffenberg. And I had, I'm the one who discovered that 24-page letter of Clinton being involved, of Epstein being involved with the Clinton Foundation, authored by attorney Jerry Lefcourt. So I was the one that obtained that. And suddenly in 2019, everyone was going to my website and purchasing that letter, which I was selling for $1.99 at the time. Discounted from $2.50. But what do you call it? So everyone starts hitting me up, these tabloids, and people are asking me, Ed, what do you think of this John Tino story? And I said, well, I haven't heard anything about it. What's the John Tino story? And they were trying to sway me away from the John Tino story. And how it goes is John Tino's a fake name, but he was an organized crime fellow in New York City in the 70s in Times Square, and he ran a massage parlor. And he says that he would arrange for sexual encounters with Trump and porn stars. And there was one occasion where Trump wanted to have an underage girl, and he arranged for a threesome with an underage teen kid and a porn star. And now that book was, that story was published in a book called All the President's Women by Mr. Levine and this French woman, I forget her name. I had them both on my show. It's in the book. But when I had them on the show, they would talk about anything in the book, but they couldn't remember the John Tino story. It's in the book, but they didn't want to talk about it. I pulled it out of them as much as I could, but they didn't want to talk about it. And I found out since that this is a pattern with Mr. Trump, is that even after something's published, he will get to the people involved and put them on the payroll. And even if it's published, they don't want to talk about it anymore, Yep. And all these published books out there about the modeling agency and the modeling stuff, there's books, they've written books, but then they don't want to talk about to sell their book. And they have money coming in from somewhere else.
So, Ed, sounds like you're on the edge of a lot of interesting stuff.
Can't help it.
And tell us a story about when you have been nervous. Where, you're talking about organized crime. You're talking about Trump, which is, is organized crime as far as I'm concerned. Tell us a story about when you got a little nervous that maybe you were a little too deep in the story.
Yeah, the organized crime stuff never worried me because I was very friendly with those guys. I owned a nightclub in New York City at the time, and I was a smuggler too. I used to smuggle marijuana. So I was out there doing stuff back in those days. I ran with the bulls in Spain. As a kid, I was a wild man, so I wasn't worried about that. And the office I worked out of in Brooklyn was very friendly to organized crime. And even later on when they tried to shake me down, I wasn't worried about that. But so the organized crime stuff, I never had any problems with. I always got along great with that. One thing with the Sarah Palin investigation, what happened was Gina Rodriguez was contacted by Shelley Tripp, who was a massage therapist in Alaska, and she had one of her clients was Todd Palin, and so she got arrested, and she did she got paid $50,000 by the National Enquirer. They had 4 polygraph examiners test her, and she passed with flying colors, but then the police chief of Anchorage, Alaska came out and said, well, we looked into all this and all these allegations are false. Well, it turns out that letter that he put out there was written by Sarah Palin's attorney and just put on the police chief's letterhead. And so when I was exposed to that, no one was helping Shelley Tripp. It was just me and her because Gina had dropped her. There wasn't enough juice there. So it was just me and Shelley, and I was scared. I was very scared with that one. And I didn't know I guess this was my first big political one, and I thought I'd be dealing with the Republican operatives. But instead, no, my house was broken into. My dog was drugged. A lot of stuff happened during that stuff. People that were clearly foreign agents were inserting themselves into my life.
So who was it? Who was it? And who sent them?
Well, I think Russia was one and China was the other. Okay.
But who sent them? Why would they be interested in harassing Ed Opperman?
Well, because I had the juice, I had the dirt on Sarah Palin and Todd Palin. And see, what happened was when the case was ended, when there was a disposition to Shelley Tripp's case, the prostitution case there, and the sheriff's department or the police department, I forget, in Anchorage, Alaska, sent me her laptop and sent me her diaries and all her material. It was that same exact day that Sarah Palin went on TV and said she was not running for president. Okay. So getting involved in that when Shelley Tripp was out there all on her own and me just making that decision that I was going to help her out when even Gina wasn't taking the case. There was no lawyer involved. There was no nothing. It was just, a lawyer came involved later on when what happened was, that's a long story, but what happened then was she sees on the news that Obama, these Secret Service agents in Colombia wouldn't pay their tab and they got arrested down in Colombia. And she says, I know that guy. That's the guy. He did the same thing to me. He came to Anchorage, Alaska. He was one of Sarah Palin's Secret Service agents and they didn't pay me.
Oh, Jesus.
How would she know? How would she know? You know what I mean?
Ed, you're in the middle of all this stuff.
I know, I know.
It's really interesting. So tell us, why is it that it seems like the Republicans are always the ones in the middle of this shit? You go back to, I don't know, the Nixon era, Roger Stone playing games there. You fast forward to Reagan, hostages for missiles. It seems like the Republicans are always the ones in the middle of this crap. Why is it? Is it because Democrats aren't any fun anymore, or what's the deal?
Well, I don't want to be rude, okay, but it seems like the Democratic Party is more interested in. I just did some Oppo research in this last cycle, and it seems like they're more interested in diverting funds to their own use and to their friends and their consultant buddies than they are in really winning. And there's it's a slow moving ship. You can't the orders from the top come down so slow that there's really it's hopeless, is in my estimation.
And
Also, too, when you go to them and say, "Hey, dudes, look at the dirt I have here on Trump or on you other people you and I have talked about privately. Look at what we got. All we need is a little bit of money, and we can get this on a silver platter." And it goes nowhere. Nobody's interested.
and why is that? Because they're too pure.
No, I don't think they're pure. I don't think they're pure. I think it's, I don't know, man. They don't have the balls, maybe. I don't know. It's,
I
'cause-
think you're right. I think they don't
Yeah.
have a stomach for it. They think
Yeah.
they're above it, and they don't realize that's why they're losing. They think they're losing
Yeah.
because they've got bad candidates or whatever. No, it's because the Republicans are using every tool in the shed to win, and they use the rules to win sometimes, as Mo points out. So it's just really interesting that the Republicans don't seem to be morally hinged on using this information to their advantage, but the Democrats are. And, we've been talking about it for a long time. And the Democrats all say, oh, yeah, well, that'd be great if we could use it. But then when we have something and we want to pay for an ad, they
Yeah.
won't. Nobody gets behind it. You're absolutely right. I have talked to more donors, rich and poor, that don't have the stomach for it. And I don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't either. And I do know that there's a lot of these Democrat type influencers and podcasters. I know there was some money floating around supporting these guys. And I know who was behind it, exactly who was behind it. I have his phone number. But for some reason, I don't know. I guess I'm too left. They don't want to touch me. They don't want to do the dirty tricks route. They just don't want to do it. Kind of funny is a friend of mine, someone very close to me, works at one of these local campaign offices for the Democrats, that is accused of rigging voting machines and all this kind of stuff like that. And I got to tell you, the idea that they would be capable of rigging voting in that office, that anybody in that office would be capable of.
Well, I think that applies probably up to the DNC
Yeah.
level too. They're just they think nefarious is putting a quarter in and getting a bottle of pop that's supposed to cost
Yeah.
$1. So
Well, they're literally sitting around trying to work Taylor Swift lyrics into their press releases. Okay, that's what they're
Oh my
sitting
God,
around doing,
exactly.
rather than doctoring the voting machines. But on the
Yeah.
other side, man, they got, I interviewed Patrick Berge, man, who was examined the Hunter Biden laptop, man, at Rudy Giuliani's apartment. Okay,
Really?
you want to hear a funny story about that? Patrick
Yeah,
Berge.
let's hear it.
Okay. Listen, I got the rundown on the laptop, man. I interviewed everybody on the laptop. I got the whole chain of custody on the laptop. Hunter Biden's attorney in his lawsuit is using my theory of the chain of custody on the laptop. Not that everybody's squeaky clean on the laptop stuff, but when the laptop, or one of the laptops, or a backup of all the laptops, there's several laptops, was at Rudy Giuliani's house. And when Rudy Giuliani got raided by the FBI and the Department of Justice, and they seized all of his electronics and his phones and his computer, they took everything but the Hunter Biden laptop. They left that one behind.
You got to be kidding me. Why?
I wish I was, man. I wish I was. I wish I was. And there's other things I could tell you, man. I don't want to say on the air. Not that they don't deserve it, but just, it's told to me in confidence, that it's a dirty game.
It really is. And the thing that shocks me is how political the FBI and DOJ is. I mean, even under, well, not necessarily under Biden, but, maybe under Eric Holder, they went out on the limb a couple times on some things that probably they shouldn't have. And clearly under Trump, he sees it as his own personal law firm.
Yeah.
But over to you, Mo. One more.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Well, Ed, listen, it's really been interesting. I appreciate you taking time to do this. And I know our listeners are really going to enjoy hearing all this. But can you give us one more on the way out that you think folks out here in Western North Carolina would like to know about?
Well, one thing I'll say about this is during like Stormy Daniels, okay, the FBI was very heavy-handed, and SDNY was very, very heavy-handed interviewing witnesses. I don't know if you've ever been up against federal investigators, man, but they'll go after your mother. You know, they'll say, hey, we got dirt on your mother. We're going to arrest your mother, you know, if you don't confess and cooperate with us, you know. And they said they were very, very heavy-handed. But you want to know what, man? They never asked a single question about Trump and Epstein. They never asked a single question about Trump and Katie Johnson. And some of the people involved in that were very knowledgeable about what was going on. They never came to me. No one has come to me and says, hey, Ed, what do you know about this? Okay. Only more recently, just I posted on Reddit that was my case, and I started getting some Reuters. But otherwise, man, like I'll be interviewed by BBC, and right before the interview starts, they'll say, hey, don't mention anything about Trump and Epstein. You know, that's how much power and influence this guy, David Pecker and AMI and these characters had over the media, and Murdoch too. The media moguls, they control it, man.
Hey, what do you think's going to happen with the whole Murdoch lawsuit? I mean, these guys used to be big buddies. Is this going to be another one of those settlements, or what's going to happen with it?
I cannot imagine that Murdoch allowed that to be published without either having a photograph of that letter. We know the letter. We know that binder exists. We know that. Even Brad Edwards said it exists. It's in the inventory of the estate. So we know the binder exists. We know that now that we know that Clinton wrote a letter in there too, and a couple other guys wrote letters in there too. So I can't believe that Murdoch went ahead without having that letter, a picture of the letter, or 10 witnesses who saw the letter. And I think that his first reply will be a copy of the letter, the first response in the first motion.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah, well, let's get the motherfucker. That's all I can say.
Otherwise, they got some kind of deal going on in the background, and it's all a big act. You know, because like I said, the Epstein story is controlled by the Epstein people 100%. I can tell you guys, man, okay? I see the same people you do on Twitter, 500,000 followers, you know, all these people, all the Epstein experts, right? None of them have ever come to me and said, hey, Ed, what do you know about this Katie Johnson case? Oh, no. And when I would contact them and say, hey, you're talking about my case. Do you have any questions? No, they're too busy tweeting to talk to Ed Opperman. Okay, they're too busy. The only time one of these huge experts has ever come to me for any kind of help was to dig up dirt on plaintiffs, was to dig up dirt on Hoffenberg, not to advance the defense, not to advance the prosecution, not to advance the plaintiffs, but to hinder the plaintiffs, to hinder the prosecution. And these are the people that if I would have said their names out loud, I would have 100,000 troll bots and tweets attacking me.
We'll say their names out loud. Come on.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, maybe with the colonel.
Give me a hint.
The colonel,
give me a hint. I'll say it. I don't give a shit.
If the colonel wants to come in with a tank, if he can get one of his old tanks.
Yeah, well, it'd be an aircraft, but anyway.
Even better, man.
Yeah. Well, listen, Ed. How can folks? You know, you've told some great stories. You sound frustrated, like we do, in that difficult getting our message out sometimes. What should folks do, in your estimation, to move some of these stories forward?
You know what? I don't know, man. I don't think there's any hope to move these. I don't think there's any hope. You know,
really?
And even if you go back, even when Epstein was alive, or if he's still alive, you know, it was just walked out of there, which I think. But you know, at MIT, he was funding MIT, their media research center at MIT. These guys, and Gawker magazine, these guys have been funding the tabloids and controlling the tabloids and controlling the news. Even when I'm quoted in the tabloids, they take my stuff and, you know, I said it, but it's really not what the entire context of what I said. You know, so it's just so controlled by the Epstein crew and that bunch and that filthy, dirty crew, man. That I don't know if there's any hope.
So you think he walked out of that prison in New York?
I think that, yeah, I would have to say that. I can't believe that they would allow, because the guy did have intelligence connections. I know a lot of people try to point to Mossad, right, but you got to look up the whole Douglas Lee's connections into arms dealing and Russian money laundering. The guy had connections up the wazoo. It's a very corrupt jail. There's enough people involved to have the juice to get him out there. Why kill him? You know, when you can have him on your side. And plus, all that kind of intelligence stuff, that's generational. You know, this is generational stuff going back to Robert Maxwell. So you can't. How are you going to hire people in the future if they're going to let you hang out to dry and get killed in jail?
That's true. Well, they had a ton of money they seem to be spreading it all over the place.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
I'm on the wrong team. I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
I want to make money.
I hear you. All right. Well, that's a wrap for this episode of the Muckyou podcast. A huge thanks to our guest, Private Detective Ed Opperman from the Opperman Report, for sharing his incredible insights and stories. We're still reeling from some of those revelations. Hey, Ed, if folks want to listen to your pod or learn more about you, where can they find you?
Well, the best way to hear the show is Spreaker.com. That's the one, and it's the least censored. Because it's very hard to find the show on Google and stuff like that, to find shows. I got 15 hours with Stephen Hoffenberg, who was Epstein's partner and a mentor, you know. He's passed away now, too, as well. Patreon, the Opperman Report Patreon, even if you don't want to sign up for 10 cents a day, if that's too much to support Ed Opperman, there's plenty of free stuff up there too. All the Katie Johnson docs up there for free. All its litigation and paperwork and stuff, it's always up there for free. Anything that comes up right away, I'll put it up there for free.
Okay, and that's Opperman Report at patreon.com, or what is it?
Yeah, at Patreon, at patreon.com. It's a paywall kind of service.
Yeah.
And otherwise, just Google Opperman Report and you'll find it. It's all over the place.
Okay, well, I'm a big fan, Ed, and I enjoyed coming on your show talking about Lauren Boebert in the old days, and so this is a little bit of a reunion for us, but thank you again for joining us. I'm David Wheeler alongside my co-host, Colonel Mo Davis. If you enjoyed the show, hit that subscribe button, leave us a review, and join us next time as we dig deeper and deeper into the muck. Stay vigilant, folks. We'll see you soon.